Distraction management has become a real big thing with teenagers because their minds and their brains are constantly being overloaded. So if your teenager is struggling with their focus, if they are always struggling to manage their time, they are constantly scrolling on their devices or playing on their gaming console, you need to pay close attention to this conversation today. The average young person is consuming about 10 hours of digital media content on a daily basis. And that constant input is hurting their ability to think creatively. So, this video is about information overload. And by the end of our conversation, I'm going to help you understand how information overload affects the brain of your teenager. And as always, the most important thing is, what are you going to do about it? The first problem with information overload is the issue of shallow learning. Because all of us are just skimming through content, we are not necessarily thinking about the things that we are skimming through. Teenagers are bombarded with facts, opinions, and different videos. They rarely have the ability to pause and process or analyze the content that they are consuming. So this in itself is what is killing, destroying your teenager's creativity. Because if they are always reacting to information instead of engaging with it, instead of criticizing it, then they are going to struggle to form original ideas. Have you ever asked your teenager to tell you something about what they have just watched or a book that they have just finished reading, and then you notice that they can't explain in their own words what they just took in? That's shallow learning in action. And I do this also even with church. So teenagers on Sunday morning attend service, and after service I'm asking them, how was today's service? And they go, it was great, it was good, it was powerful, and all of that. And then I ask the young person, what did you learn? It used to baffle me at the start until I started seeing how rampant it has become, that a young person cannot critically or simply summarize a meeting that they sat through for 1 hour, 2 hours, as the case may be. That is a real big problem, and it is a problem of information overload because the child has gotten used to just scrolling through short videos, TikTok content, and all of that. It limits the ability for critical thinking, it limits the ability to process thoughts and process information effectively. And as a parent, I need you to begin to encourage your teenager to create what I call thinking time, a space where you can ask questions that require reflection, questions about what you have done. We do this a lot at the Teen Success Academy. Within the Success Tribe and our communities, we have review sessions, whether it is for books or for movies that we have encouraged our teenagers to see. We want them to sit down and be able to review the digital material that they have been exposed to. Limit scrolling time and help your teenager promote deep reading, deep thinking, and hands-on learning. It's something that they have to learn very effectively. The other crisis with information overload is what I call originality crisis. If you read my book, Why Teenagers Fail, I have like 7 crises I described there. This is not even part of it. But originality crisis is the crisis of copying instead of creating. And that's what information overload does. That is part of the social media effect on teenagers because they see so much content that they subconsciously always imitate something rather than create their own. Now, I understand that a big part of creativity is being able to replicate something that you have seen before, but that is not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about just consuming, the copy paste mentality that we see with our young people in this age. Why is this dangerous? It's dangerous because creativity thrives in originality. But when you're drowning in other people's ideas and other people's content, then there is very little opportunity for your teenager to develop their own, and they're going to struggle with the idea of developing their own original material. It leads back into the conversation we're having in another video where I talked about the fear of failure and perfectionism. Because this whole comparison thing, this whole copy paste thing is limiting their ability to create originally. Think about it, TikTok trends, what are all those things? Trends, generally. So many teenagers repeat the same dance, repeat the same step, trying to do the same thing, the same sound, the same caption, and all of that. When was the last time that your teenager made something that was truly, truly original? What can you do? Challenge them to remix ideas, for instance. Challenge them to create original ideas rather than copying ideas of other people. That's also why we created the 30 days creativity challenge. The idea is to challenge teenagers to come up with original things. Like I said in the video about fear of failure and perfectionism, the first draft is always going to need an update, but you need to constantly challenge your teenagers to create rather than copy. Encourage them to create before they consume. I do this little thing that I call creating before consuming. Make something before you watch something. Write something before you try to go and copy something, before you try to go and see what other people have written. All right. So encourage your teenager to be able to get into that kind of process. The other effect of information overload is mental fatigue. An overwhelmed brain cannot be creative. That is just the truth. An overwhelmed brain can, I think I was saying this in one of our live sessions where I said, at the end of the day, where you are tired from the day's activity, and then you pick up your phone as a way of resting, you want to scroll through social media. One of the things you're going to realize, if you're honest, is that after about 1 hour of scrolling through content on social media, you're actually more tired than you were when you started. So scrolling on the internet is not a way to relax. There are other creative ways that your teenager can learn to relax, refresh their mind, and set themselves up for creativity. Because too much of information leads to decision fatigue, for instance. It leads to stress. It leads to mental burnout, and directly it will affect your child's creativity, because when their brain is exhausted, then they are going to avoid creative thinking, they are going to avoid complex thinking and anything that requires exertion of mental energy, which is the primary input for problem solving. You have to exert your mental energy, right? So if your teenager constantly saying, I don't know what to do, you ask a question and they don't know how to think about that question, or you sit in class and other people answer all the questions, and when they ask you, you say, they have said what I wanted to say. No, you say your own. That child might be struggling with a mind that is overloaded and also a mind that is drained of energy. Teach your teenager the power of digital detox. I talk about this a lot in my book on smartphone addiction. I talk about it also in my book on the gift of boredom. Digital detoxification is taking regular breaks from the screen to do creative activities and to do activities that refresh your mind and your mental faculties. Encourage your teenagers to get into activities like journaling and mindfulness activities to reset their minds from time to time. So these are general tips and strategies for you to help your teenager. But for long-term solution, you need to help your teenager overcome information overload by doing a number of specific things. Encourage them to create, like I said before, they consume. Start your day with journaling or end it with journaling. Your teenager might need to get a sketchbook where they doodle, where they draw, where they brainstorm ideas before turning on social media. I do this with my teenagers on a weekly basis. When we come, we sit down and we journal. There are specific prompts, and we created a journal in the academy. I don't know why your teenager is not in the Teen Success Academy, anyways, but we created a journal in the academy that we sit down with every weekend, and we are able to journal. We process the week's activities and we help teenagers to make sense of what is going on in their life. The whole idea is to teach journaling as a skill, teach reflection as a skill, teach thinking as a skill. The second thing you can do is to encourage deep work habits. You know, we are gradually eroding work as a virtue in our society, but teaching deep work involves setting aside distraction-free time where your child can focus on one thing at a time. Sit down and read a book for 1 hour. Sit down and play a sport for 30 minutes, for 45 minutes. The third thing you can do is to help them set input limits. This is about encouraging your teenagers to be intentional about less scrolling and more thinking. All right, then you, of course, as a parent, you need to model healthy consumption. If your teenager sees you as someone who is always consuming everything on the internet and on social media, of course, they're going to want to copy and take after that. But spend some time and let them see you read a book, let them see you pick up a magazine or a newspaper, let them see you listen to podcasts, and that way it creates a culture, because teenagers and young people will imitate whatever they see. And if they see you doing these things, it creates that culture of taking breaks from screens and uh, doing creative activities. Of course, they are going to follow suit. So if your teenager is struggling with information overload, they're struggling to focus, they're struggling with creativity or distraction management, whatever it is that we have mentioned in this video, and you can connect with it, you can relate with it, and your teenager is struggling with any of these, do not miss out on the 30-day creativity challenge. It's coming up from the 1st to the 30th of April. And slots are already filling out. So take action right now, register, and I will see you on the inside. Comment your experiences with me. What is one way that your teenager spends time away from their screen? Or what is one struggle that your teenager is struggling with? Let's share. Like and subscribe to our channel, because more content will be coming your way, and I'll see you next time.